The confrontation came on a stormy night, fitting for the emotional whirlwind that was about to unfold. Evelyn had waited until Daniel returned from one of his business trips, which she now knew had been a rendezvous with Naomi. She sat in the living room, the folder of evidence on the table in front of her, waiting for him to walk through the door. When Daniel entered, he was greeted not by the usual warmth of his wife, but by the cold silence of her rage. Evelyn stood, her eyes burning with tears, and threw the folder onto the table. "Look at it," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. Daniel, confused, picked up the folder and flipped through its contents. His face paled as he saw the photos, the messages, the damning evidence of his betrayal. He tried to stammer an explanation, but Evelyn cut him off. "How long, Daniel? How long have you been lying to me?" Once upon a time, in the heart of Albany, a bustling city in West Africa, where gleaming skyscrapers towered over the sprawling streets below, lived Evelyn, the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the region. Evelyn was the epitome of beauty, grace, and poise. She had a smile that could light up any room, and her sharp intellect was matched only by her compassionate heart. Born into privilege, she had attended the finest schools, mingled with the elite, and built a reputation as a woman of substance. But behind the success, wealth, and beauty, there was a longing, a desire for a love that was real, pure, and genuine. Evelyn's circle of friends was as elite and beautiful as she was. Naomi, Grace, and Rebecca were daughters of powerful families, each with their own dazzling personalities, careers, and fortunes. Together, they were inseparable, sisters in everything except blood. But for all the love, friendship, and success, Evelyn was lonely. She wasn't interested in the men who threw themselves at her because of her wealth. What she wanted was someone who saw her for who she truly was, beyond the glittering lifestyle. That's when Daniel entered her life. Evelyn first met Daniel in the most unexpected of places, the dusty streets of her childhood. Her father had always been a man of tradition, despite his wealth, and it was his habit to take long walks in the older parts of Albany. One afternoon, Evelyn had accompanied him on one of these walks, and it was here, among the bustling traders and street vendors, that she saw Daniel for the first time. Daniel was working as a construction laborer at the time, his hands calloused from hard work and his body lean from years of toil. He was repairing the road near Evelyn's family's estate, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. There was something about him, something that intrigued Evelyn. He was not like the polished, overconfident men she was used to. There was a raw energy in him, a determination she couldn't quite place. Daniel, on the other hand, had no idea who Evelyn was. To him, she was just another beautiful woman walking by, someone far out of his reach. But her gaze lingered longer than usual, and for a moment, Daniel felt something stir inside him, an emotion he had long buried beneath the weight of his struggles. Evelyn couldn't get Daniel out of her mind. Something about him captivated her, and the more she thought about him, the more she wanted to know who he was. The next day, she made an excuse to return to that part of town, and as fate would have it, she saw him again. This time, she struck up a conversation, asking about the construction work. Daniel was reserved at first, unsure of her intentions, but soon they began to talk about more than just the road. Over the next few weeks, their conversations grew longer and deeper. Evelyn learned that Daniel had big dreams, that he was intelligent, ambitious, and determined to rise above his circumstances. Daniel, in turn, discovered that Evelyn was not the spoiled rich girl he had assumed. She was kind, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in him as a person. Evelyn's father, Chief Ibrahim, was a proud man, and the idea of his daughter falling in love with a poor construction worker didn't sit well with him. He had hoped she would marry someone from their social class, a man with wealth and influence, someone who could expand their empire. But Evelyn was not swayed by money or status. She loved Daniel for his heart, his passion, and the dreams they shared. When it became clear that Evelyn was serious about Daniel, her father withdrew emotionally. He didn't cut her off financially, but he made it known that he would never accept Daniel as part of the family. Evelyn was heartbroken but undeterred. She was a woman of her own mind, and she had already made her choice. Their wedding was small and intimate, held at a secluded garden estate just outside the city. Only a few close friends and family members attended, with Chief Ibrahim noticeably absent. The ceremony was beautiful, but there was an underlying tension in the air. Evelyn's friends Naomi, Grace, and Rebecca all attended, supporting her decision even though they, too, wondered if Daniel was truly worthy of her. For Daniel, this was both a dream and a nightmare. He loved Evelyn deeply, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't belong in her world. Still, he vowed to make her proud, to rise above his humble beginnings and be the man she deserved. With Evelyn's financial support and Daniel's determination, their life together slowly transformed. Evelyn used part of the inheritance she had received from her father to invest in Daniel's business ideas. At first, it was slow. Daniel had many ideas, but not all of them took off. They faced failures, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But Evelyn never wavered in her support. She believed in Daniel, and in time, their hard work began to pay off. Daniel's first successful venture was a small logistics company that catered to the wealthy elite of Albany. It was an idea Evelyn had suggested. There was a growing demand for discreet, reliable delivery services among the city's upper class. Daniel ran the business with military precision, and soon, it became the go-to service for the rich and famous. With the profits from the logistics business, Daniel invested in real estate, and soon, he had built a small empire of his own. By now, Daniel was no longer the poor construction worker he once was. He was a respected businessman, wealthy in his own right, and accepted in the circles he had once been excluded from. Evelyn was proud of him, and for a time, their life together was perfect. But success came with temptations. As Daniel became more successful, he found himself drawn to the lifestyle that came with it. The parties, the attention, the allure of power, it all began to intoxicate him. And with power came the attention of women. Evelyn's friends, who had once seen Daniel as a humble, rough-around-the-edges man, began to notice him in a different light. He was no longer the poor boy who had married their friend. Now, he was wealthy, confident, and powerful. Naomi was the first to fall into Daniel's orbit. She had always been drawn to men who exuded power, and Daniel, now dressed in tailored suits and driving luxury cars, was a different man from the one she had known. Their affair began at a charity gala, a night of expensive wine and whispered conversations. Daniel, feeling invincible, found himself flirting with Naomi in ways he hadn't before. She responded in kind, and by the end of the night, they had exchanged more than just pleasantries. The affair with Naomi was thrilling. Daniel felt a rush every time they met in secret, their rendezvous hidden from Evelyn's eyes. But soon, the excitement of one affair wasn't enough. Grace was next. Grace had always been the most reserved of Evelyn's friends, the quiet, compassionate one. But underneath her calm demeanor was a deep loneliness. Daniel noticed this vulnerability during a business trip they had both attended. Grace was working on a charity initiative, and Daniel offered to help with the logistics. One late-night meeting turned into another, and before long, Grace found herself caught up in Daniel's web. She knew it was wrong, but Daniel's charm was overpowering, and she couldn't resist. With two of Evelyn's friends already under his spell, Daniel, who now seemed to have a PhD in Playboy lifestyle, set his sights on the only remaining friend he hadn't yet tasted. Rebecca was different from the others, more cynical, more guarded. She had always been suspicious of Daniel, even as she grew to respect him as a businessman. But Daniel saw her skepticism as a challenge, and over time, he wore her down. Rebecca, like Naomi and Grace, eventually succumbed to Daniel's advances, despite knowing the betrayal it represented. Evelyn, ever the trusting wife, remained oblivious to Daniel's affairs for a long time. She had always believed in his loyalty, and even as his behavior began to change, she attributed it to the stress of business. But then, small signs started to appear, things that were too strange to ignore. It started with a late-night phone call. Daniel had left his phone on the table while he went to take a shower. Evelyn, sitting nearby, saw the name flash across the screen, Naomi. It was unusual for Naomi to call so late. Curiosity piqued, Evelyn picked up the phone, but before she could answer, the call ended. The next day, she asked Daniel about it, but he brushed it off as a business call. Evelyn wanted to believe him, but something didn't sit right. Over the next few weeks, she started noticing more oddities, Daniel's unexplained absences, the way he avoided her questions about his work, and the increasingly strained atmosphere at their social gatherings with her friends. It was at one of these gatherings that the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Evelyn had invited Naomi, Grace, and Rebecca over for dinner, a casual get-together like they often had. But this time, Evelyn noticed something strange, the way Daniel avoided eye contact with the three women, the tense silence that settled over the room whenever he entered. There was a familiarity between them that went beyond friendship, something unspoken but palpable. Her suspicions deepened, but she didn't know how to confront it. Evelyn wasn't the type to accuse without proof, and so, she waited, watched, and silently collected the evidence that would confirm her worst fears. The turning point came one evening when Daniel, in a moment of carelessness, left his laptop open on the dining table. Evelyn, passing by, saw an email notification pop up from Grace. Her heart raced. She had never felt the need to invade Daniel's privacy before, but something told her to look. With her hands trembling, she opened the mail to find new pictures of Grace, her friend, emailed to her husband. She also found a string of messages between Daniel and Grace, intimate, personal messages that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Shock turned to devastation as Evelyn dug deeper, finding similar emails from Naomi and Rebecca. Each message was a dagger to her heart, each line confirming the betrayal she had feared but hadn't wanted to believe. The women she had trusted most in the world had not only betrayed her friendship but had also betrayed the sanctity of her marriage. Evelyn felt like her world was crumbling around her. She didn't confront Daniel immediately. Instead, she planned. She needed to know how deep the lies went, how far the betrayal had spread. She hired a private investigator to follow Daniel, and within weeks, she had all the evidence she needed: photos, text messages, receipts. The truth was undeniable. The confrontation came on a stormy night, fitting for the emotional whirlwind that was about to unfold. Evelyn had waited until Daniel returned from one of his business trips, which she now knew had been a rendezvous with Naomi. She sat in the living room, the folder of evidence on the table in front of her, waiting for him to walk through the door. When Daniel entered, he was greeted not by the usual warmth of his wife, but by the cold silence of her rage. Evelyn stood, her eyes burning with tears, and threw the folder onto the table. "Look at it," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. Daniel, confused, picked up the folder and flipped through its contents. His face paled as he saw the photos, the messages, the damning evidence of his betrayal. He tried to stammer an explanation, but Evelyn cut him off. "How long, Daniel? How long have you been lying to me?" Daniel's shoulders sagged under the weight of his guilt. There was no denying it, no excuses left to make. He had destroyed the one thing that had truly mattered, Evelyn's trust. Evelyn didn't shout, didn't throw things, didn't make a scene. She simply packed her bags and left. There was no need for a dramatic exit, the weight of the betrayal was heavy enough. As she walked out of the door, Daniel realized too late that he had lost the only person who had truly believed in him, the only woman who had loved him without condition. Word of the scandal spread quickly through the city. Daniel's business deals began to fall apart as people distanced themselves from the disgraced businessman. Evelyn's friends, Naomi, Grace, and Rebecca, were shunned by the social elite, their reputations forever tarnished by their betrayal. Evelyn, however, rose from the ashes of her broken marriage stronger than ever. She severed all ties with her former friends and refocused her energy on her career, her philanthropy, and rebuilding her life. Daniel, once the man who had everything, was left with nothing. The fortune he had built, the respect he had earned, all of it crumbled as quickly as it had come. Alone and disgraced, he wandered the city that had once embraced him, a shadow of the man he had once been. In the end, the city of Albany, with all its glamour and wealth, had taught Daniel a harsh lesson. Betrayal has a price, and in chasing after power and desire, he had lost the one thing that truly mattered, love. The tale of Daniel and Evelyn became a whispered cautionary tale in the city, a reminder that even the brightest lights can be extinguished by the darkness of deceit. And so, life in Albany went on, its streets still alive with ambition and dreams. But the story of Daniel's downfall remained a quiet reminder that in the pursuit of power and pleasure, the heart is a fragile thing, and trust, once broken, can never be mended. The moral lesson from this story is that true love and trust are more valuable than wealth and power. Evelyn cherished genuine connection and loyalty, but Daniel's ambition and desire for more led him down a destructive path. In his pursuit of power and temporary pleasures, he lost sight of what truly mattered, Evelyn's love, trust, and belief in him. Betrayal not only destroyed his relationship but also eroded the success he had built. The story reminds us that betrayal and dishonesty have a heavy price, and once trust is broken, it can never be fully restored. True fulfillment comes not from material gain or power, but from maintaining integrity, respect, and loyalty in relationships. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like this. God richly bless you. Catch you in the next video.